Hello everyone! While exploring Natlan, many of you have fallen into Night Kingdom space, where a huge spike stands menacingly tall, further proof of the crimes of Heavenly Order. Of course, this is the work of Celestia. Her mute but inexorable presence has been pressing on the inhabitants of Teyvat for over 6,000 years. Earlier quests took us here too, but we could only spot the thorn after the Night Kingdom had been destroyed by Pyro Archon. In this quest, this spike was so tiny that it was almost impossible to notice it. This spike is not a random element. Celestia scatters them generously all over Teyvat. But why? In story quests with Nahida, when we were in the rift with Fungi, it was explained to us that the spike was protecting the region from Abyss. The spike is the only reason why, firstly, Abyss didn't break to the surface, and secondly, why it turned into mud here, which was then easily cleaned up by targeting it with a special crystal. A second confirmation of this spike functionality can be found in a description from the Flower of Paradise Lost artifact description. There it states, "But the Master of the Heavens, consumed by fear for the rising tide of delusion and breakthroughs, sent down the divine nails to mend the land, laying waste to the mortal realm." Here the fairy Pushpavatika indicates that Phanes was panic-stricken about Abyss and anxiously scattered spikes across Teyvat. We have yet to see if this refers to the thorn in Natlan, if it refers to the time of the dragons when they ate the fairies, or perhaps it is the aftermath of events that took place 500 years ago when somehow Tenuk and a troop of tribesmen were able to stop the advance of the devastating turbid black tide, after which Merijivari was formed. We will soon find out, but we can already say that thanks to the presence of the spike, the Natlan had time to organize and survive until modern times. Then why does Abyss grow stronger over time and penetrate the surface despite Celestia's defense in the form of the spike? Is it that in other regions the influence of Irminsul is so great that it contributed to the ley lines helping the spike to contain Abyss? Ley lines are still present in Natlan, but not as developed and robust. But is their importance so great that without them the spike cannot handle Abyss? Today I want to discuss Celestia's crimes. Are her actions justified? Is she overreaching, trying to find a balance, or purposely punishing in a showy way? Perhaps her actions are for survival and defense, but then why are there so many disgruntled people? Abyss Order, Narziss and Croids, Remus, Fatui, Tsaritsa, other Archons. Let's get to the bottom of this. I have prepared some facts that we should discuss. Let me say right away that today we equate Celestia with Phanes, that is, we reject the theory that Asmodeus took over the Heavenly Order and consider it as one of the four shining shades of the Primordial One. Let us now list Celestia's so-called crimes. Let's start in chronological order. Celestia's first crime is the invasion of foreign territory and the seizure of territory from the dragons by Phanes, who was called the Usurper. Here, there is considerable contradiction in the sources. Some say that Phanes arrived on a ready-made planet and remodeled it for himself, while others say that he created it from scratch. Two older sources say that nothing existed here before Phanes. The book Before Sun and Moon says, "When the eternal throne of the heavens came, the world was made anew. The primordial one, the great sovereign, began the creation of heaven and earth for our sake, that of its creations which it cherished most, who would soon appear upon this earth." The second source is Staff of the Scarlet Sands, where the process of creation of the world is told as follows. First, the sun and the moons were created, and thus day and night came to be. Next, weight was created, thus sand sank, forming the earth, and that which was without weight became the sky. However, the Natlan story contradicts the established view. According to it, before Phanes, Teyvat belonged to the dragons, who independently developed the planet to a very progressive level. The ancient watchtower states that legend has it that in ancient times the colossal beasts that roamed the land had a civilization of their own. After exploring the entirety of the land and surrounding sea, they built these structures in an attempt to cast their gaze upon the even wider world beyond. But these wise beasts have long since vanished. It's incredible to think of dragons as astronauts. Imagine this picture. The chief of the dragons, Nibelung, who decided to confront Phanes and went into space to seek power, eventually found Abyss. The automatons in Natlan are rumored to have been created by a civilization other than humans, but by an older civilization. The only thing left from this civilization is only strange mechanisms roaming the earth. Perhaps they are fairy or dragon technology. However, since fairy technology has not been seen anywhere else except in the case of Sal Vindagnyr, it is most likely still dragon technology, which confirms the information about an ancient dragon civilization. The second evidence for the existence of a dragon kingdom before Phanes is the world-span fern. The description says, "At the dawn of time, the world belonged to the dragons. There the ferns were the first to sprout in the lush, verdant world of Apep's court. In the ages after, these ferns would become trees, vines, roots, and leaves, blanketing the world with their touch. If it wasn't Phanes who created the planet after all, then all the blame for the power stolen from the dragons lies with Celestia." Interestingly enough, in the end, in Natlan, the dragon Xuquatl was able to gain independence for his territory while other bishops were fading everywhere else. Xuquatl didn't have these problems. He was respected by the humans until Waxaclahun Ubah Khan got his hands on Phlogiston and shared it with the humans. After that, the people would start a war against the dragon, which already involved the tribes that worship Wayob. If Celestia is so authoritarian, why did Xuquatl live by his own rules? Then why didn't other dragons like Apep join him? Why was Apep overthrown but Xuquatl was not? And then why didn't Celestia, because of the atypical government, destroy Natlan like Khaenri'ah? The second crime was the destruction of the first civilization and the exile of the fairies. The history of the decline and fall of Remuria says, "This heaven-blessed reign lasted countless generations until people grew tired of their inscrutable eternity. Their offspring ceased to listen to the oracles. Instead, they desired things never promised to them by the divine, trying to break free from their fate. Enraged by their behavior, heaven sent gigantic waves to smash the settlers' cities." The prayers for wisdom artifacts say, "So, they questioned the heavens' authority and schemed to enter the garden of gods. And though they had promised to the people divine love, prosperity, and wisdom, the envoys of heaven were angry. For to question eternity was forbidden, for earth to challenge sky inexpiable." By the time Second Descender arrived, the controversy had reached such a level that some fairies sided with humans who sought to escape the control of fate. This was absurd, for once they were out of the control of fate, they would fall under another fate, though this time of a higher order. Some who managed to master the power of Abyss gained their freedom and are now enjoying life. Surtalogi, Skirk, and possibly the other 5 sinners of Khaenri'ah definitely prove that heavenly order means nothing to them. Vedder is planning to create his own Irminsul to replace the original one. It turns out that humans and fairies are to blame for their own troubles, hoping to gain freedom and deciding to go against the heavenly order. Phanes punished them for it. The third crime is that Celestia destroyed Sal Vindagnyr. This is a very strange story and it is unclear when it happened. It was never revealed or mentioned anywhere after the release of Dragonspine. Celestia dropped the spike and the frostbite disaster happened after a spike shard hit the local Irminsul, the ley lines blob that kept life comfortable. It seems there were no plans to destroy Irminsul. It was a surprise because firstly the ley lines protect against Abyss, as we were made clear in Natlan, and secondly they are a repository of memories. It makes no sense for Celestia to collapse the ley lines because it weakens Tevat's defense against Abyss. From the information available, we can assume that the thorn accidentally damaged Irminsul, but what exactly was he trying to destroy? Honestly, it's unclear, and there's almost no mention of Abyss manifestations in the region. Perhaps the thorn did deliberately descend on the city after all, due to Sal Vindagnyr's misbehavior. According to a quote from the Prayers for Wisdom artifacts, "So the chief priest who wore the white-branched crown went forth to appease the divine envoys, and into the deep places he went, seeking the hidden wisdom of the silver tree in the ancient capital. Maybe he got in too deep and Celestia got angry and threw the spike." Celestia's fourth crime is the imprisonment of the previous Hydro Archon Egeria. The girl was too saddened by the fate of the Oceanids, who wanted just like humans to live on land. Egeria granted the Oceanids' wish, which drew the wrath of Celestia, who considered it a sin. As a result, she was punished with imprisonment and a prophecy about a flood that would wipe out all the inhabitants of Fontaine in the future. She herself was guilty, but the adequacy of the punishment relative to the offense is questionable. Celestia's fifth crime was the destruction of Khaenri'ah. Dainsleif told them that the automatons were created for the purpose of conquering and cultivating the surface of the earth. That meant that there were plans to take over the surface. That was what Celestia didn't like. But why turn people into hilichos? That's the curse of Celestia, isn't it? Because the symptoms of Abyss infection are quite different and most often lead to agony, as in the Narcissan Crit's experiments, or death, as from the disease called Eleazar. Furthermore, there is evidence that the transformation into hilichurls in the denizens of Khaenri'ah occurred as soon as they left the Tevat dungeons and passed through the gate. We also know that the pure-blooded inhabitants of Khaenri'ah are not transformed, but those who betrayed their gods, Archons, and Celestia are transformed. In sum, all of Celestia's crimes were either self-defense, their legal right to dispose of property, or malice. There is insufficient evidence to adequately charge or acquit Celestia. Well, that's the end of my story. Thanks for watching. Write in the comments what you think about Celestia and subscribe to my channel. It gives me more motivation to make videos more often and make them more interesting. See you soon!